So, welcome to the Bromley Course in Miracles Study Group penultimate lesson, and it's good to see you all back, and we've had a discussion about everything that went before and all of the challenges, and today is going to be even more challenging, I'm afraid. Well, it was challenging for me, as I say, because we're going to be talking about the illusion of time and space. And although it's very complex, it really is important to get, because it's like believing you're a body. The body ties you into time and space, and if you have that set belief in time and space, as if you have the set belief in the body, some of these other concepts that are really important don't make sense. You can live that life for a while, and then it comes to the point where you have to choose which reality you're going to believe, okay? And the only way to get to heaven is to really leave the reality of the ego behind and go into the real world, as the Course calls it, or I call it heaven. I call it heaven. Okay. So, illusions of time and space. What is time? So what I want you to do is to just write a little description, definition of time for yourself. Okay, so what did we come up with? What is time? Anybody want to venture out there? There's no right answer as such.
To me, it's the constraint used to construct this unreal world.
Okay, so it constructs the world, and
the
limits
unreal world.
Yeah, the dream. Mm-hmm. Okay, call it the dream. Excellent. Anyone else?
I just put it was a quantifiable way of measuring space.
So, interesting, time is actually measuring space. Yeah, anyone else?
I just said a man-made way of organising human life into
yes,
bits and pieces.
Yeah, all of the above, really. So when I was kind of meditating on this, contemplating this, if you like, and I was thinking, you know, for me, the clock hand measures the space, if you like, between the numbers, the digits, doesn't it? So, and, you know, as we know, kind of time is quite arbitrary, if you like. It's personal and it's relative, because Einstein said an hour with a pretty girl goes very quick. This isn't the exact quote, but something like this. An hour with a pretty girl, you know, flies by, but an hour sitting on a hot stove feels like eternity. So it's relative to you, it's relative to what you're doing, and so it's your perception or judgment. So I was thinking about, you know, how did they measure time, and what was time before clocks, if you like, and why did we kind of have it? And what the history tells us is that they used to watch the stars and the planets and the sun, and they could tell the cycles of what was going to happen by following the celestial movements. And so, you know, that in itself kind of suggests that time is circular, not linear. And then I was thinking about, okay, so when the first clocks, if you like, sundials came about, they were really just measuring the distance, if you like, that the sun took, the pathway that the sun took, the distance that the sun went through, and then obviously the moon. So really, you could say it's measuring space again, or even it's measuring light, because the light gets brighter and brighter and brighter, and then dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, and then the light changes completely for the moon. And I found that really interesting, considering science says the only thing that exists is light, and also that, you know, what is God, what are we? We are the light. So it becomes much more personal again, even looking at it from that point of view. And then, so why did we develop time as such? Why did we need it? And as you say, it's about organisation, isn't it? It's about running your lives. You know, as soon as our brain starts to realise we have tasks to do, and there's other people to interact with, you know, it's no good me saying, I'll meet you over there in the corner. question is when, isn't it? And so in some ways, the more we interact with each other, the more we develop an idea called time. So Einstein said time and space is one thing. It's time-space or space-time, however you want to say it. It's not time and space. They're not different things. So it's the way I like to think about it then, that means time-space is 100%, isn't it? One thing, yeah? 100%. And it's really interesting if you think about that, and I think the easiest way to think about that is in terms of law of attraction, okay? So, law of attraction says the more you think about something, the quicker it's going to come, yeah? If I don't really want anything, I don't really focus on it, it's highly unlikely to come, or it'll take a long time to come. But if I'm thinking every minute of every day and praying, doing my visualizations and whatever it may be, then it's more likely to come. Your brain is focusing, remember, for what you are interested in. So my interested in, let's say, you know, having £1 million. And so every morning I'm doing my visualization, every evening, oh, what would it be like to be a millionaire, to feel like a millionaire, all those kinds of things. And the more I think about that, the more my mind is going to filter out what's not about that and filter in, or make me focus on what that is about. Yeah, so I don't know, there may suddenly be programs on lottery winners on the TV or whatever it may be. So that's the kind of mainstream psychological view, is that the brain will filter out and focus you in. So if I give 90% of attention, it only has 10% of space to move through, so it's going to get there quicker, isn't it? If I only give 10% of my attention to what I want, it's got 90% of space to move through, because attention is time, yeah? Time spent focusing. So that makes, in some ways, law of attraction fit with time and space, I feel. And that's the easiest way I can get to kind of show you it's kind of one thing. So in the course, it actually talks about, I think it talks about in the course, or I might have got this myself from the course, I can't remember, it's so hard to differentiate between the two now, is that the more time I spend focusing on God or heaven or being in my right spiritual mind, the quicker I'm going to get there. If I'm reading my course every day and doing the work and doing the lessons and living it and looking at it and, you know, studying, I'm going to get there a lot quicker than if I just pick up the book now and again, or maybe do one of the lessons, or read the book but don't actually do any of the work, because it's going to have a lot more space to travel through, if you like. Now, obviously, this isn't real space and time. This is the analogy, yeah. Because as we know, it's a dream, and in a dream there is no time. You can jump from thing to thing to thing. There's no beginning. There's no end. It just is. In the course, though, it does talk about things that you are conscious of. So the conscious mind deals with the now, doesn't it? Everything that you think you can see, smell, taste, hear, touch, think and feel. That's your conscious mind. 7 bits of information that you're conscious of in any one moment. Okay? So the conscious mind deals with the now. I want to differentiate between the now and the present. So for me, I call the present the present. Okay. So, in reality, there is only now. In your dream, you're not planning, are you? And you're not thinking about what happened before. In the dream, we think about your dreams, it just happens now. 1 minute you're here, 1 minute you're there, 1 minute you're doing this, 1 minute you're doing that, yeah? No beginning, no end, there's just now. Okay, scene by scene by scene by scene. The ego and this reality, if you like, will tell us that there's a past that has already happened that you can't do anything about. True? It seems. Yes? Okay. So, I don't know. I spilt the glass of orange and now there's a stain on my carpet. Okay? The past action has now has affected the present. Well, really, it's the pre-sent, because the stain has been pre-sent from the past, if you like. Yeah? It happened in the past, so it's been sent forward into the now, into the present, and the stain appears in my now. Yes? Okay. Then, because the stain is there now, it's going to be there in the future, isn't it? Unless I do something in the now to clean it. Yes? Do we agree? So it appears as if the past is unchangeable because it's already happened. You never are actually in the now because we have been taught it's the present, that the now is actually just the past being experienced now. And that the future is already set and unchangeable, if you like, because it's coming from the now. Now, the future is dangerous to the ego. Oh, sorry, the now is dangerous to the ego because if I know that I can change my reality now, that means I'm in control of my future, not the ego. But when I don't think I can do anything in the now, it just runs. The old files just open because I'm always seeing the past. How do I know what a cup is? I've got a file that says, oh, it's cylindrical with a handle, you put it to your mouth, you put liquids in. So I'm just opening all of my old files thinking that I'm seeing the now, when all I'm seeing is the pre-sent files, if you like. And then, because I'm opening it now without me realising it, I'm creating a perceived future from that. So the ego traps us with time because it's telling us that the past is unchangeable, the future is unchangeable, and the present just is. So where is your power? You now are completely powerless. And therefore, because I know that, I believe that this present is a real thing, I don't realise that I can change the past or I can change the future or I can choose something different now. And I know as a hypnotherapist that I spend my whole life overwriting people's pasts for them. So I know you absolutely overwrite the past now. Yeah? And obviously, if I clean that state now, it's not going to be in my future. So time and space isn't what you think about. Let's just keep it time. Isn't what you think it is. It's not unchangeable, and it's only now. So let's think about memory. What's memory? Any ideas? Just throw it out there.
Story.
A story. History. His story. So my story, if you like, about me spilling the glass, and let's say, oh God, it's reinforced my stupidity, okay, how clumsy am I, and all of that beating up that goes on. So my story, I look at the stain now, and in some ways, are going, where did that come from? Yeah, I've got to make sense of the now, haven't I? I've got to know what I'm doing, where I am, who I am, all of that. And that's the question that you're always trying to answer. What's going on now? So I see a stain and I think, where did that come from? And then the old file is sent to the present, if you like, from the past, i.e. the brain goes, look, you clumsy thing, you spilt the drink and now there's a stain. Okay, so memory is actually your mind just putting whatever you're thinking about now in a frame of the past to make sense of the now. So it's almost like you create a backstory. There's no proof that that stain has ever been there before this moment when I see it. And in fact, if I'd never noticed the stain, it doesn't exist in my reality, does it? It's only when I notice the stain that it becomes real. And when do I notice the staying? Now. There's only now. So my whole life, number one, you only ever see the past. We don't, and that's why the course says your mind is always blank, because you're not actually seeing reality. We're only seeing the past catching up with us, if you like, and then letting it roll into a future, perceived future. Does that make sense? Do you want me to go over anything? Now, obviously, that's not the end of the lesson, so we're going to reinforce it, but just that basic thing is really important to get.
If you're only seeing the past now, which rolls into the future, then isn't the now as opposed to the past now?
I think you need to differentiate between the present, i.e. the present, and the actual real, if you like, conscious now, which is a moment in space. This might help you. So the now is not an aspect of time, if you like, it's an aspect of space. So the course says what you think about with your conscious mind is space. It's here and now, if you like. So the only thing that exists, I've done this before, isn't it? How do you know your house exists when you're here? For all intents and purposes, it doesn't, okay? But as you get to the now, i.e. driving round the corner, and you expect to see your house, the file is sent from the past to the present, opens, because how would you recognise your house? You go, okay, yeah, end of terrace, got a hedge out front, you know, mud path, whatever it may be. The only way you can know that's your house is when your file opens in your brain. And it's been pre-sent, if you like. So the here and now, as far as your senses go, is all that exists. The present doesn't exist. It's just files opening in your mind now. This is where the language gets difficult. Can you kind of get a feel for the difference that I'm trying to make? Because the ego tells us the present is an aspect of time, but really you're talking about space. So, let's do it in percentages. What is here and now is all of reality, all of time. It feels all of time and space. So this is 100%. What I'm thinking about, let's say in the past, oh, yesterday that lunch was fabulous. It's not here and now as such, is it? Yes, it's in my head, but just for this analogy, it's not here. The lunch isn't, I'm not in the restaurant, I'm not with the same people, I'm not having lunch. So it feels further away, yes? Well, the course says that's time. And if I think about the future, obviously I'm not there now. It's not in this time and space, because if it was, it would be now. And therefore the future is far away. Yes? So what is here and now is 100% of time and space. But what I think about and frame as in the past or the future is out there, and the course says you should think about that as time.
Yeah.
So what is here and now is space, if you like, and what is past, present and future is an aspect of time. Time doesn't exist, only space, if you want to call it that, only the now does. Is that okay? Does that make it a bit clearer? Don't worry, you're just giving her a headache already.
I'm just thinking, did you turn that off when we started talking?
Did I turn it on?
And then turn it back on.
It's a red
No,
light on.
it's on.
Oh, it is on. It was bugging me. I thought I knew and didn't say.
Yeah, because Nadine wants the copy of it. Okay, so the course says, he who needs do nothing has no need of time. Because time only begins at the start of an action, if you like. So we say my arm takes 3 seconds to move here. Okay? Well, am I not measuring space? Number one, if you're going to do it that way. But actually, all it's doing is, it's an arbitrary kind of measurement, isn't it? An arbitrary kind of piece of information about the process of my arm moving. The process of my arm moving. And in order to, why I would need a measurement of that, I don't know, but if I need a measurement of that to organise my life, then I have to have some way of measuring it, yeah? So I would say it takes 3 seconds, or this is, I don't know, 15 inches, or whatever it may be. It's kind of arbitrary either way, isn't it? But it's talking about the process of movement. You can't have time when everything is still. Time ceases, doesn't it? So time is about movement and doing, which is why time doesn't exist and space doesn't exist in the oneness of God, because God is one. One is still, one is complete, one is all that is, however you want to say it. So there is no movement in the one. Same with awareness and consciousness. There is no movement in awareness. I can be aware of the sounds around me but not do anything about them. If I become conscious of the sounds around me, I've made a decision about what that sound is as such, or I've become conscious of the sound, because consciousness is a duality. You need to be conscious of something. That's a movement, isn't it? That's a movement of my hearing, if you want, or I have to see something, so it's a movement of my eyes. It's a movement actually of consciousness.
But don't you need, aren't consciousness and awareness interchangeable? Because can't you be aware? So to be aware of the sound, don't you have to be conscious of the sound?
No. The way I think about it is in meditation. In meditation, the sounds are flowing all around me. Okay, even if you go to silence, there's never silence. Okay, true silence. So even if I'm meditating, I'm aware of sounds around me, but I'm not engaging in them. I'm not thinking, oh, there's a bird and there's a bee and all of this kind of thing. Although my consciousness is aware, but there's no movement of consciousness to the bird, to the bee, to the... Does that make sense? Now again, you know, these are language that makes it difficult and that, but you know, this is the best way that I can differentiate between the two. So for me, God, one, all that is awareness, i.e. there's, like in my meditation, there's no movement of my consciousness, and so there's no movement in God as such, which is why I can't judge, as we talked about earlier. But because there's no consciousness as such, but when my consciousness moves to be conscious of something, or my awareness moves, perhaps that's a better way, my awareness moves to become conscious of something, now it's become consciousness, it's become an act, it's become a doing as such. Does that make sense? So we've done the difference between the conscious mind, which is all that exists, which is now. I may think about something that I'm framing as the past or I'm framing as the future, but I'm thinking about it now. Yeah? Prove your house exists, you go, oh here, look at me outside yesterday, show me this picture, but I'm looking at the picture now. And there's nothing else that exists, so it can only be there now. The unconscious mind is so powerful because it's the best ego tool to keep you in the past, present and future. because that's all it's concerned with. That's all the ego is concerned with. How can I feel guilty about something if I don't remember what I've done? So it's a man-made, ego-made, if you like, creation, time and space, to keep me imprisoned and powerless. Yeah? Think about the people who have severe amnesia. So if I bonked you all on the head now, your life would begin now. You would have no memories to tie you, and you may not even have a future to think about, because you wouldn't have, you know, things to say, I want this and I want that, in this first moment when you awaken, if you like. And if I think about the Jill Bolte-Taylor video that's on the YouTube channel, if you haven't watched it, watch it, because it's so powerful. It's almost like when she had her severe stroke that took out the ego, all there was the oneness and the awareness. She calls it nirvana, expansion, whatever you want to call it. So her ego, if you like, had been destroyed in that moment, and therefore she had no past history. She had no future wants and wishes. She was living in the now. And it was expansive, and it was beautiful, and it was peaceful. Which goes to prove in some ways, and she found as soon as her ego came back online, it's the ego that is keeping us in time and space. That's why it needs a body to locate you, and it needs bodies to differentiate from, which creates the space between us. So space isn't a thing, it's created by individualizing things. If that makes sense. Because, you know, if that puff thing there was, you know, right up to the plant, and there was, you know, they looked very similar, I wouldn't be able to, or it looked exactly the same, I wouldn't be able to differentiate between them. I only know they're two separate things because of the space between them. I should say they look identical. You know, it's only if there's space between them that I could see they were two different things. So in some ways it needs space and a difference in time between your consciousness, between your two levels of the brain, if you like, in order to manage this. Because if I had one brain, there would be no differentiation, no separation, no conflict, no contrast. It would just be what I wanted to do in the now, as such. Does that make sense? Okay, so I want to talk about imagination as well. Now, people go, oh, it's just imaginary, don't worry about it, you know, did I imagine that, as if it's not real. But imagination is part of consciousness, because when are you imagining? Now. You can't be imagining in the future. You can imagine about the future, but you can't imagine in the future, and you can't imagine in the past. You can only imagine now. So the ego wants you to believe that imagination is the weakest part of the brain, when it's just consciousness. But again, it's put in a little compartmentalized, or put in a little sort of separate pocket, as, oh, we don't want to go there, that's nothing, don't worry about that, it's all, oh, that's in your imagination, that's not real. Because why would you want someone going there? Because as soon as they realise imagination is the most powerful part of the brain, the ego is scuppered. It's just lost its biggest trick. So you want to use the power of the imagination, which is why law of attraction is all about visualization and using the power of the imagination to create what it is that you want. Really, that's just to create your life. We're not imagining this fantastic future that, you know, has got to be brought to us and is under the laws of whether I'm good enough or not and all that kind of stuff. If I think it, it comes. That's what it says. Think, you know, ask and it is given. But the ego will come in and play stupid games like, oh, you don't deserve it and all of this kind of thing. But that's all just using my conscious mind now. But because I believe in the separation between the two parts with their different wants and wishes, you know, I play the conflict game. And that's how judgment comes about, isn't it? Which one do I want? Which one is better? So when you're having judgment and levels and all of that kind of stuff, you cannot be whole-minded. And you can only be whole-minded if you want to get to heaven as such. Because there can be no differentiation. You have to get yourself back, if you like, to how God is because you were created as a pristine, let's say, copy. So you can't have anything different if you want to get back to heaven. So you have to be free of fear, free of the belief in time and space and judgment and levels and all of the things that Course is actually teaching us will get us to heaven.
What I realised is I get inconsistent results, so I can imagine and create something like that, and then the next minute I can't.
Yeah.
And that's because what I realised is my mind's split. When you're 100% decided on something, you're doing it, you're having it, you're getting it.
Yeah.
When you're not, you're going to get the inconsistent...
Well, listen to your language. When you're 100% that's 100% of thought, it has no space to come through.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah.
When you're believing in time and space and a split mind, as you say, and we're so used to playing the ego's game that you can't have everything you want. It has to come to you through space and time. And it's that gap, that belief in the gap, that does us in, because there is the space where doubt and conflict and contrast can get in.
Yeah.
If we're 100% sure, like Jesus, give me 500 loaves of bread and 500 fishes or whatever it was, and there it is. And so, in the Bible, he's showing us how it should work and what's possible. Which is really, he's just talking about law of attraction, isn't he? But as soon as there's a gap, doubt can come in, the ego can come in, conflict, contrast, levels, and all the rest of the stuff. So if we could get there where we 100% believed, because if you 100% believe you can walk on water, you can walk on water, because it's not a time-space reality. There's no kind of matter as such. It's just all consciousness. Okay, so all is now. So, can everyone see this? So this is my little drawing, if you like. I'll try to make it a bit simpler. So this is my projector, and we're used to going in the cinema, aren't we? Sit down, watch my film. It runs from, there's a beginning when the film starts. It runs through right to the bit I'm watching now, and then I know the rest of the film is on the reel and it will come in the future. Okay? So this represents the way we think about time. Now, if I was to pause the film, where I've paused it, what happened before was the past, and what is yet to happen would be the future. Yeah? And if I didn't know that the projector existed, I just know this is a film, I'm watching a film, then I would never know that actually, if I looked a bit further backwards, there's a projector with a reel of film. If I take the reel of film off the projector and undo it, this is what it looks like. These are the holes in the film to differentiate between the frames. So there's frame, space, frame, space, frame, space, frame. So this is quanta, if you like, it comes from quantum physics. This is a packet of energy or whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to call it a time frame. So that film exists now. The film is all that is. The past is on it, the future is on it, the present is on it. Okay? And if I'm the projectionist, I can get that out and I can look at frame 1, frame 99, frame 5, frame 477, or whatever. Like in my dream, I can jump from scene to scene to scene to scene to scene. It's only when that is run through the projector that I get an experience of time, which is really the process of the film running through the projector, that I now say takes 2 hours or takes an amount of time. Yes? So this is the now moment. This is, in some ways, how life really is. Now moment, now moment, now moment, now. But like the film, it runs so quickly, it just seems like my continuous life. And it's only in the now when you stop, let's say like you pause the film would pause on a scene, wouldn't it? And it's like me pausing on this film, stopping in the now and going, okay, what do I want to create here? So that's why the ego doesn't want you doing it, because here I can see, oh, okay, if I was a director, for example, oh, I don't like this scene, cut that one. But while the film's going like that, I can't do that, stop, cut that. And plus the film wouldn't make sense as such, but it makes sense for me to cut it here if I know I can change this one coming next, if you like. So this is where quantum physics is. Life is just frame, 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 frame. Now this really fits well with parallel worlds theory, doesn't it? So I imagine parallel world theory is, because it's not just parallel 1, 2, there's billions and billions of lines coming out of me, if you like, right? Or if you like, really, you should say billions and billions of me's in each line. And we think I'm just going, plodding along through my life like this. What's really happening, and if we said there were billions and billions and billions of films, right, frames like that, films, let's say this is me in the now, I could go here, 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 here. Because every time I choose, I don't have to choose this frame. I could choose this, 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 this. They're all there waiting for me to choose. But because we don't realise it, we just go plod, 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 plod. Let the next one come, let the next one come, let the next one come, let the next one come. Which is why you feel life is happening to you, because you don't feel that you have a choice of frame. But you do. The other analogy is if it's like a book. Okay, you get a book. It's all that is. Okay? This book, let's do it. So we got this book, okay? On the core, halfway to a positive Joyous life. Thank you for Amazon. Anyway, so we've got this book, okay? It's all that is. It exists now. Everything that could ever happen, if you like, in relation to this book, every word is there, everything is done. What do you learn or know or experience from that? Nothing. Do you? So let's say this is God, if you like. So it goes, I can't know anything about myself, if you like. As it becomes conscious of itself, it's almost like another one is created in front of it. Let's say I'm book, I'm the original book, and another one gets created in front of it. Exactly the same. And now I can now read the book. I can now have an experience of the book through time, page by page, in order to make sense of the whole. So it's only by, reading it sequentially, if you like, in sequence, that I can make sense of the whole. Now, I could, let's say, read up to page 76, and like lots of people do in good novels, they jump to the end because they can't wait and they want to know what the end is. Now, I can do that, but what I have to do for these intervening pages is make up a concept or a story that would make the end fit. Otherwise, it's unknowable, if you want to say that. So although everything exists, all that is already unchangeable, finished, complete. The book is finished, look, it's out here, it's published. In order for anyone to have an experience of it and to make sense of it and to know thyself, you have to go through the process, which takes time and, if you like, space. Does that make it clearer? Any questions? Anyone want to say anything so far?
That's why they sort of say dare to dream.
Yeah, it's not even dare, is it? It's funny because I was thinking about this morning in the shower, that, I'm still surprised when things work out perfectly. why am I should be surprised if they don't, because then I've created something that I consciously didn't choose, if you like. So it should be the norm that your dreams just cut, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that, this, and if you understand that imagination is the pure creative force, if you like, and it's only you. This is what I've forgotten about time and space. Let me go back to time and space for a moment. So time and space comes from your perception. All measurements are taken from you, because you, aspects of you, if you like, include time and space. So let's look at New Year. Okay, New Year in London for me, right, is 12 o'clock PM GMT time, right? I've got a cousin in Australia. When I experience New Year, it's already in the past for my cousin in Australia. And let's say Spain is an hour ahead, so it's still in the future for those in Spain. For my cousin in Australia, her New Year's bell chime, if you like, is in the now for her, but mine is in the future. And if there was a country behind that, I don't know, Japan maybe, who's behind in time as such, it would be in the past. So you are the measurement of time, because it's always, what time is it now? Now is your creation. There is no other time. Because really, my cousin in Australia doesn't even exist until I think about her now. But, so, you are the measurement. This is why it says you are the whole universe. Because you are time, you are space, you are everything. And so this is the next bit that gets a bit, because my knowledge of music is not great. So if anyone knows about music, you might be able to help me out here. So a harmonic is, let's say, 5 notes together, right? That's a harmonic. Or if we were to all sing in harmony, we'd have 5 different voices on different ranges, okay? So let's say this is the harmonic of me. Where I am, what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, all those things, okay? So let's just say there's 5 things. One of those 5 things has to be where I am, and has to be when I am, in order to make sense of life, doesn't it? So we are a harmonic, we are all different vibrations, if you like, and we are different because, my harmony, if you like, is different than your harmony that you're creating. And we all have a different, even twins have a very, very much the same, but still a different harmony, so we can tell them apart. So the song of you, if you like, has to include time and space, where you are, what you are. Does that make sense? When you are. Does that make sense? I know it's complex. So this is interesting, because Bashar says this is how time travel takes place as such, in that if I want that glass to move to the other edge of the table, that glass, part of that glass, is not moving through space, because space doesn't exist. What I have to do is, in some ways, focus on the glass that's already there, in potential. So in one of these parallel films, there's already a glass there. And if I could find the frequency of this point in time and space, the harmonic of the glass here is different to the harmonic of the glass there, because the time point and the space point is different. Yeah? Is this making sense? So if I knew what the harmony of that one was, that one would look like it moved there, but really all I've done is jump parallel lines, if you like, and the glass appears there. Does that make sense? So if I wanted to teleport, I have to find what my harmony is, and then just change the note of time and space into wherever it was I wanted to go, let's say longitude and latitude over there, or whatever it was, then I would appear over there instantaneously. Because there's no time and space to move through. So if we're going to do it on this kind of level of reality, then, you know, it's all about your vibration and frequency, as we know. And if I could have machinery sensitive enough to find my vibration and be able to change aspects of it, I could just go around the room like this, which I find fascinating. I'll let that sink in for a minute. Remember, it's all possible. The glass exists all over the table. Let's say there's 9 points in the table where the glass could be. The glass already exists there. Like this is it. All of the programs on the TV already exist, don't they? They're all floating around from the Sky satellite, let's say. It's only when I go, boop, BBC One, that I focus on BBC One. All the others still exist. I'm just not on that frequency. So what does the noodle doodle do? Sorry, the remote control. We always call it noodle doodle. The remote control tunes the dial, if you like, to a certain frequency, or the harmony of BBC One, if you want to say it in those terms, and BBC One appears. So at the moment, I'm focused into the frequency of the glass there, because I chose it earlier, didn't I? When I moved. But if you might have had this experience, isn't it? Where I'm sure I put my glass there. Where's it gone? It's almost like my brain has been scrambled for a moment and I've gone off the channel. And then I kind of focus and I find it where I expect to find it. Is this making sense? Now, what I want you to realise is nothing that I'm saying does not make sense objectively. Does not make sense objectively. Yeah, it scrambles our brain and the ego comes in and all of that. But rationally, logically, there's nothing that I'm saying that really is wrong. Can't prove it, maybe, but it makes logical, rational sense, doesn't it? I'm not talking gibberish, maybe complex and difficult to get, but it's objectively possible, let's put it in those ways. So, Course also says, time is inconceivable without change, yet the present and God does not change. Therefore, time doesn't exist, it's man-made, all of those things. And we've done this. The oneness, the awareness, there's no change in the pristine, in the God, but in order to know itself, then there has to be a copy, if you like. Now, this isn't outside because there is no time and space. You can't be outside of all that is. So this is just to differentiate for you. Really, that is in there. There's no difference. So you could say that my consciousness, the Son of God, is just a point of consciousness that's going, ooh, exploring all that is. We've done that. So time is unnecessary in the kingdom, but time here is a teaching tool. So we talked about the 2 levels of reality before we started, and you know it's difficult to teach, particularly, and that is where the course becomes difficult to understand, is because it's using kind of 2 different levels to teach you on, and 2 different levels of reality. So as I said earlier, you can use the psychology of the course brilliantly, you know, and get your life to really improve. Projection, reversal of cause and effect, the attacks, defense cycle, all of those things. You can use them brilliantly and have a happier dream. But the aim is to escape the dream and wake up, hopefully for most of us. And it's like giving up a penny to get a pound. But if you believe that, oh, look at my penny, I've got a penny, how rich I am, you're going to be less likely to give that up for the pound when you don't realise what the pound means. and as we talked about before, it's kind of giving up. It feels like giving up everything for no thing, because as soon as you say it's static, it's one, there's no thing, no time, no space, just awareness, the feeling is that you will disappear. But you can't be non-existent, if you like, because all that is, you are already part of all that is, so you must always be a part of all that is. It can never be all that is except you. So you will always go on. Would you like to go on a little bit? So there is no change in the now. We've done the frame and the quanta. I guess the one way of thinking about it as well is my hand moving against the wall? Or is the wall moving, if I could get the wall to move, is the wall moving against my hand? You know, you've seen those people on bikes in the old films and they're just running the scenery past, but it looks like they're actually moving along the scenery. And I guess it's kind of that in some ways. We think life is, we're moving through life, but really we're a static consciousness watching the film. So it's an illusion of the movement of consciousness. So everything I see activates the past, because every sense is a thought projected onto the body. Right, let's do that. So how do I know what I am, where I am, what's happening? The now is me filling it with sensory information. So I project it out, pretend I haven't projected it out, take it in, make a decision about it if you like, and project it out again. So it's just kind of breathing in and out if you like. This is what would this look like? Oh, what would I think about that? What does this look like? Oh, what do I think about that? Yeah? And so I can only create what I already know. And so I can only see the same, if you like. I can only ever see what's in my files, or what's within all that is, if you want to do the wider level. Okay? So let's just keep it on this level. So what I've got in my files from the past is what I put out there. Even inventions, it said, are actually come from a higher level. Einstein, Tesla, Leonardo da Vinci, all those people got their information in trance or relaxation or sleep. Well, that's when the consciousness is expanded somewhere else, isn't it? The ego's out of the way, if you want to put it there, that's telling us these things are not possible. So a sense, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, is in some ways just a thought, isn't it? We think of it as a thing in the body. I see with my eyes, I hear with my ears, I touch through my skin, all of those things. But really, that just gives information to the brain, doesn't it? And the brain says, oh, that's hot, move the hand. Yes? No? And we think about this emotion, energy in motion, as also being in the body. You know, you don't feel your sadness out here, do you? You feel it here or whatever it is. But what's an emotion? It can only come from a thought. So it's the thought playing through the thought of the body. It's all just thought. Even though it appears to be physical, appears to be a different experience from a just thought that you think, they're not. They're just other thoughts in a different frame, if you want to put it that way. So every sense is a thought projected onto the body. Every emotion is just a thought projected onto the body. So it's all just thought. Thought doesn't move through space or time, the thought is always now. I can think about space, I can think about time, but it's always now. Therefore, emotion makes the past real, but body and mind only knows the now. Therefore, I can only ever be upset now. I think I'm upset because I spilt the orange. Oh, look at that stain. But I'm only ever upset now. So again, everything is now. Even if it appears that the emotion comes after the thought, it's still just another thought. So the Course says, the biggest ego game it plays, isn't it, about sin. Sin, you can only know you've sinned, is past tense, isn't it? Look what I did. And even if you were saying, oh, I'm doing this and I feel bad, you're already talking about the past, because you have to have known what you did 1 second ago to know that it's affecting you now as such. So sin looks like it's unchangeable because it looks like it's happened in the past. The guilt will be felt in the present, and therefore it feels like you can't do anything about your guilt because you're believing it's in the present and it's pre-sent, isn't it? It's pre-sent from what you did. And therefore the fear is always in the future, because the fear is, what if the same thing happens again? Or what if there's consequences? Or now I'm going to be punished. You're not being punished now. I will be punished, we say. I'm going to be punished. Sorry, Kat. What's happening to this? Hit that leg. Just let that brew while I'm fixing the thing in space. Now, there's a difference between something being created and something being made. The Course differentiates between that. We don't really create anything, because creation is new material, if you like, something completely new. Whereas when you make something, you make it from existing materials. So all that is all that is. Everything is in existence already. So you can only make things from it. Which again, keeps the oneness pristine, keeps the oneness untouched. Because you can only make things from it. You can never change, because it's already complete and one. You can never change. You can add to it by making stuff, but you can never create anything outside of it because it's complete. It's all that is. If like we had plasticine and paper and paints and pencils, that's all there is. I can't create anything else. I can only make stuff by maybe putting some plasticine on the end of the pencil or making a rubber or something. Yeah? Does this make sense? I can only work with the tools and the materials that I have. And that's all that's in existence, those 4 things, let's say. So I can make things from them, but there's nothing else that I can create. So there's a huge differentiation that you have to get between thinking you're creating something new and that you can ruin things and you know, make mistakes and all of that kind of stuff, but you can only make. So you can never offend God, damage God, change God, because it's all that is. Does that make sense? And so that's why sin doesn't exist as well. Or even, if you want to believe you have sinned, your place of power, remember, is the now, the time frame. So if I realise, okay, I've sinned, I've made a mistake or whatever, I correct it. And I move on. Because the past doesn't exist. Once I've corrected it, I've jumped to another parallel line, if you want to like. And that one doesn't exist in that parallel line. So good news, you can just run away from your problems if you like by jumping to a new frame. What that really means is you're just, reframing it, reframing it in your mind. Seem too easy? Go on. No, just say it, go on.
Yeah, I get that.
But?
I get that, but if you have sinned, okay, that's the story that you've sinned, which you can reframe and move on and change.
Yeah.
But you don't forget.
Okay, so
Unless you resolve it, and then you move.
But you see,
So I've hurt you.
Yeah.
I've done something to offend
Yeah.
you. And
Again?
I'm
joking. Go.
And I know that I've done that.
Yeah. And now you feel guilty.
So I feel this guilt.
Yeah.
So I can just change that frame and just move on, or I could come back to you and correct what I think I've done,
And that is the jumping of the frame.
That is the
Yeah. So when I don't just say, well, you could, if you could really do it, just go, well, the past doesn't exist, she doesn't exist. Because you don't feel guilty in dreams, do you, for things you do? So if you could really live that, then fantastic.
Yeah.
But if not, what do we do? So by the time I've termed it a sin, I've made it real.
Yeah.
So now I've got to do something in the real world. So you would come and apologise to me, perhaps, and if I choose to accept your apology, then we've come to the place where nothing happened, although it has. So, when we do the week of forgiveness and when you talk about forgiveness, the Course clearly says, never see an attack. Because by the time I've taken it that you've offended me, that's my problem. I've allowed you to affect me. And if I define it as an attack, I've made it real for both of us. If I just go, oh, that's your opinion, I haven't made it real for me, and therefore it hasn't been made real for you. But by the time we've said, oh, I've done something bad, now we've got to play the ego's game. So the spirit reinterprets everything. So the spirit goes, oh, that's okay, your intention wasn't to upset her. Go and apologise and that'll be fine. So if I accept your apology, we both become free and we both, go back to where it never happened, the best that we can. And if I don't accept your apology, that's my problem and I'm going to therefore suffer from it. The way I chose to suffer when I took it as an insult the first time. Because your suffering is always a choice, because you're the only one creating. Do I want to make it real, or do I want to go, she's not even real, I don't know what she's talking about. That's her opinion, however I want to do it. Yeah? But as soon as the ego gets us to play that game, now we have to go through the steps, the process in time and space to undo it. But if you didn't make it real in the first place, you save yourself a lot of time and effort, which is why Jesus always says, turn the other cheek. Not because so you can go, yeah, hit me again, or anything like that. Because, oh, what happened? Nothing happened. What are you talking about? You can do what you like to me. Nothing, it's my decision whether I make it real or not. And there's nothing real, so don't make anything real. Get over it all. Yeah. It's like freedom, isn't it? Which is why if you can really get to that belief where it's a dream and really live like that, I wouldn't take offence in a dream. I wouldn't come and hunt you down the next day and want you to feel guilty and expect an apology. You just wake up and go, oh, that was weird. Or is it just me that goes? So time and space disappear along with the universe, and then only heaven remains. Do, do, do. And that's why Gary R. Reynolds called the book Disappearance of the Universe. Because the universe is you and your small self persona believing in the film instead of realising you are the frames. And you can play amongst the frames if you choose to, or you can just go back to bliss. Heaven. And that's why I think stillness, meditation, all of those things are in some ways the only way to God, the only way to heaven, because what am I doing when I'm still? What am I doing when I'm meditating? I'm going back to the frame, going back to the oneness, to the awareness, blah, 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 blah. And anything other than that is the dream.